And if people could take their seats, I'll give everyone a few more seconds to get collected and then we'll kick off here. I know it's very exciting to have a packed room. So, all right. Great. Yep. All right, welcome everyone to our joint meeting of the Youth and Human Services Committee and CPS School Board. Very exciting to have so many people here today, and glad to have another joint meeting. So I am joined on the City Council side by Vice Chair Evan Nolan, Vice Mayor Jan Michelle Lemon-Kearney, Councilmember Ryan James, and Councilmember Mark Jeffries making an appearance for today. Thank you, Councilmember Jeffries, for joining us. Joined by members of the administration, Director Tiffany Brown, Solicitor Bryce Rhodes, our clerk Laundra Brown, and thank you to City Cable Steve Sobel. So before public comment, I will turn it over to CPS to do their introductions and house cleaning.
Thank you. I need to do a quick roll call for the Cincinnati Public School Board members. Ms. Armbruster, Ms. Bolton.
Present.
Mr. Crossett, Mr. Lindy, Ms. Mapp.
Present.
Vice President Moffitt.
Present.
President Craig.
Present. And I just want to acknowledge also, we have a few members of the administration. I didn't get to see everybody who came in, but I know we have Superintendent John Murphy walking in now. That was Treasurer Mike Gustin. We have Assistant Superintendents Deb Klein and Amy Randolph, as well as our Deputy Superintendent Alicia Smith. And did I miss anyone else? We have Chief Gullahu back there, as well as Joe Wessels, who's in our Marketing Communications office. I believe I caught all of those folks.
All right. Have we acknowledged everyone we need to acknowledge? Okay, I got the thumbs up. All right, with that, we are going to move to public comment. Every person will get 2 minutes. We've got 3 public comments. The microphones are on, so you just have to come on. There will be a green light that starts your time. When you see the yellow light, you still have 1 minute. So first, we'll welcome Katie Califoot. Hopefully I got that last name right. Okay, great.
Can you hear me? Yeah, good? Okay, hello. My name is Katie Califoot. I am the proud mother of 2 Cairns Cougars, and I serve on the Clifton Pedestrian Safety Committee. The 0.7-mile corridor north of Ludlow Business District on Clifton Avenue is home to 4 schools, 4 daycare centers, 7 places of worship, the Clifton Rec Center, and the Cultural Arts Center. This is the most heavily used family corridor in our neighborhood. Data collected shows that 97% of cars moving through this school zone are speeding, with speeds topping out over 70 miles an hour. For Cliftonites, this is not surprising. We are getting used to seeing drivers speed through crosswalks, run red lights, while kids, pedestrians, and crossing guards are present. For kids walking to school, Cairns starts at 7:40 a.m., which means they are crossing a high-speed roadway in complete darkness for 30% of their school year. While there are many improvements we could make to Clifton Avenue, it seems to me the immediate and most effective is also the simplest. Enforce the traffic laws that already exist. Our community has repeatedly requested enhanced enforcement with no active response. Meanwhile, drivers continue to break the law and children continue to bear the risk. Let's make school zones sacred. They should be the place where every driver knows speeding, distracted driving, and reckless behavior will not be tolerated. Children need safe access to school, playgrounds, friends, and when streets connecting these places feel dangerous, these resources become inaccessible. As a parent, I want to raise confident, independent kids. I want them to walk and bike and participate in their community safely. And right now, families in Clifton do not feel safe. Please make school zones sacred, enforce the laws, and make Clifton a place where kids can access the places that allow our community to thrive.
Thank you so much. And this is a perfect topic for it to kick off today. Our next in-person speaker is Robert Siegel. You will have the privilege of the floor for 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to talk to you all. I'm here as a private citizen, as a grandparent, a pediatrician, and an obesity medicine physician. And my biggest concern, I live in Clifton, and I certainly second everything Katie suggested to you. My biggest concern is the safety and the health of kids in Cincinnati in general. Obesity rates in Cincinnati are quite high, well above the national norm, at around 23% of kids by the time they hit middle school. To help us work against this, we need safe routes to schools. As Katie pointed out, there are 4 schools, a rec center, and a mosque, and several daycares converging on the corner of Clifton and Woolper, and it's very concerning. Enforcement of traffic laws, of course, would help a great deal. There's also been a proposal submitted by one of the Clifton Town Meeting members, Dave Meyer, about who's a traffic engineer on restructuring that corner, which I hope will work its way to this group as well. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And then I believe we have one speaker on Zoom, Derek Blassingame. Oh, he logged off. Okay, or didn't log on. Great. Okay, well, with that then, we will jump into our presentations. We have 3 presentations today. We're going to do the first one by itself, and then the second 2, since they're both around pedestrian safety, we'll kind of group together just to help us keep moving. So I would like to welcome Judge Carrie Bloom up to the dais, and the floor is yours, ma'am. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you very much. Ooh. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for welcoming me to this really unique and special committee. I'm happy to be here to share what's going on at the court and also to answer any questions. Certainly, we know that the safety, health, and future of all of the children and families in our city and in our county are our number 1 priority. And I say our to mean ours as elected officials, ours as citizens, and ours as human beings. What I'm passing around right now is if you could just pass it. So, is a picture that I'd like you to take a look at. It's something that we printed out, but it won't ever be posted. It's a picture of kids that would otherwise be blurred out so that their faces weren't showing, but I thought it would be an important thing for you all to see. They're children that certainly as educators you all know. They're children that as city officials you have likely heard about or seen before, but they're children being children in our detention center. So I'll start off by sharing some slides about the role of our juvenile court, some statistics, and some of our current organizational efforts. Of course, everyone knows safety is our number 1 priority for everyone, and safety comes in lots of different ways. It can mean getting guns off the streets, it can mean keeping kids in safe homes, and it can mean addressing issues before they pop up and create danger. All of those things are the court's responsibility. The jurisdiction of the court is anyone who's under the age of 18 and charged with a crime, and anyone who is a child in our county, because we of course have jurisdiction over the abuse, dependency, and neglect division of JFS. In 2025, nearly 23,000 people came through the court. And it is not a place where people make reservations. It's a place where you're asked to come. And so I say that to say that 23,000 people had reason to interact with the juvenile court last year. It feels significant to me for many reasons that we'll get to. And when we talk about the filing percentages, and later we'll talk about some other percentages, I'll use the word delinquency and non-delinquency. Delinquency is akin to the word criminal. Non-delinquency is akin to status offenses or custody filings or abuse, dependency, and neglect filings. And so the 79% stat is there to show you that although what you primarily hear about of the juvenile court are delinquency and criminal allegations, most of the things that we deal with at the court don't have anything to do with that. It has everything to do with safety and healthy futures. You heard a little bit about our goals. Our role is also to ensure every child that we keep with us at the detention center is safe and begins their rehabilitation process. And you can see some pictures here of some of the things we're the most proud of, which is graduating kids who come in and spend a significant period of time with us. Most kids who end up graduating from it's a Cincinnati public school inside of 2020 have a significant amount of time that they've stayed with us. So they end up doing credit recovery with the wonderful educators that we have inside the detention center. And then they have their graduation ceremony where you can see they wear a cap and gown and their families get to come. And there is cake, which is how we get some people to come, myself included. You can see the gentleman in, well, there's Dr. Kareem, but the gentlemen in the black outfits are our staff. And they're the staff of the detention center where they truly embrace children as their own. They love them. They work with them on their personal development, but they're also responsible for rule compliance and discipline if it comes to that, which is an incredible way to expose kids to safe adults. I'm very thankful that we have that opportunity. These pictures here show a little bit more about our detention center and what happens inside 2020, because the role of the court when it comes to detaining kids is, as I mentioned, to begin their rehabilitation, but also provide them any services and support that they should receive in their families already. So they should receive healthy meals, they should receive medical attention, they should receive school. They also get the opportunity to have sensory experiences. You can see the picture in the middle is the gentleman from the opera who comes, and I can tell you that these kids about fall out of their chair the first time they see someone who looks like them open their mouth and sing opera. It's really wonderful. And then the garden on the right, the right-hand picture is the one that's also in the picture that you all saw. That's a partnership with the Cincinnati Zoo, as well as a lot of volunteers who come to 2020 to help kids learn how to plant, how to grow food, what to do with that food afterwards. And the zoo helps us with seasonal planting. So all the way from early spring through the fall, we do rotations of planting, and it's really engaging and really cool. I mentioned earlier that we have several partners. We call them our systems partners. All of you are also our systems partner, and most of you are represented in what we would call our systems partners group, which is a group that we started shortly after I became the administrative judge, so I would say in 2023, where we got every organization, or at least public organization, together who in some way affected or was affected by a kid or a family in our county into one room, and we started making long-term goals, short-term goals, defining our roles. And with the help of the Fisher Center, or formerly the Fisher Center at Children's Hospital, and their ability to moderate conversations, we really have made a lot of progress in everyone defining their lane, and not so much staying in their lane, but at least understanding what other people's lanes are, where to ask for help, where to collaborate. And really the goal is, how do we keep kids out of our systems? We've done what we are calling Thrive surveys, where we're asking kids, what do you need today? What do you need tomorrow? And how do you define success? There's other questions in there too, but that's the main purpose. And what we are finding is most kids are nervous, most kids are hungry, and a lot of kids are unsure what they would ask for tomorrow because they've never thought about tomorrow. Hearing those responses is devastating, but it's also really informative and guides our work and our approach as a whole, as a systems partner. This just explains a little bit more about what we do there. You've probably heard in the news about our assessment center, about the courts diversion process, the courts diversion program, and some differences of opinion in how it's administered. And so I just want to share with you the facts and the statistics. And that is, first of all, the federal law and the state law require the juvenile court judge, that's me, administrative judge, to make rules and procedures on how to divert cases. The preference of the law is that cases are diverted before they're officially filed. And what that means is not that if a murder comes in, we have to first divert it and then file it officially. That's not what it means. It means that the preference is for kids to have an opportunity at diversion in almost every instance, not every instance, of course. So that's why you can see that a large majority of the cases that come to the juvenile court are put into one form of diversion or another, either through a school-based docket, through the court's own diversion program, or through our community courts. The success of the assessment center and their pretrial services is also remarkable. What you can see here is that over 80% of kids who had the pretrial assistance of our assessment center did not receive a new adjudication. So a new adjudication would be considered recidivism. So we're saying that the recidivism rate is very low for those kids who get involved with our assessment center. What I will say is that we have been expanding the use of our assessment center service navigators, which are our pretrial officers, if you're familiar with adult court, and keeping kids and families in connection with the court, but also in connection with someone who can help answer their general life questions has really been successful. We've expanded that to include those kids who are charged with felonies, because we thought, why should we keep our success to misdemeanors? So here we are with 74% of kids who are charged with a felony did not receive a new adjudication within a year. That would mean, well, I know this is school, but math is not my strong suit. So that would mean very few received a new adjudication. These are statistics that we're remarkably proud of, and they're things we just really don't talk about because we don't want to talk about how great we're doing. We want to talk about how to be better. What everyone's likely interested in is crime and crime stats. And so here is a snapshot of homicide, which would be murder plus, so lots of different things fall inside a homicide designation. Assault, which includes misdemeanor assault, and felonious assault and aggravated robbery. We designated 2026 and 2022 for two reasons. First, in 2022, there was a different approach being taken at the court by a different administration. And that approach was primarily based in punitive measures, primarily based in longer commitments, more people on probation, and more akin to an adult system. And then 2026, of course, has been a complete year in the administration that you all are familiar with, that you have either talked with me about or even seen on the news. The statistics are representative of the same time period, so a few months here. And I am proud and motivated by the numbers that you see. Until they are all zero, it's not success. Until everyone who lives in any community feels safe no matter what, it's not success. But this is progress. And this is progress that we can show to really anyone who asks us. 2022 to 2026 in the assault charges primarily, one thing I want to offer to you is that the work done in our schools, not just Cincinnati Public, but certainly in Cincinnati Public with restorative justice approaches and more hands-on programming, accounts for lower numbers of official filings for what I would call fights or girl fights. A lot of our school fights are girl fights. You guys know that. The other thing that I would say accounts for less charges, particularly in the higher felonies, even just the homicides, is that there was a really unfortunate group of adults who were influencing kids in those years, 2021 and 22. And they have been apprehended and charged and are no longer able to talk with vulnerable children. And so our charges went down drastically. This is the flyer for our Summer of Discovery, which is what every child is assigned to do. If you catch a new charge from now until, I don't know when, I haven't decided yet. I sound like my mom, I'll tell you when, is what you have to do when you come through the court, which is go to your local library, sign up for a library card, go to your local rec center or YMCA and sign up for a pass, and bring me a copy of your latest grades and your attendance. This program does not result in diversion. It does not result in your case being dismissed. It doesn't result in leniency in any way. What it results in is you and your family having education on what your community has to offer. And then I want to know about your grades and your attendance because I'm nosy and I want to know. But also I want to make sure that when it comes to August and everybody's getting ready to go back to school, they know what school they're going to, which grade they're going to be in, and any other issues that might come up. We have the ability over the summer at the court to help parents and students get that all squared away before school starts. So these are just some more pictures of what we have going on. It's a lot of really great stuff that happens inside our buildings that you would otherwise not have reason to come into. I like to talk about when folks drive down Auburn Avenue to go to Christ or downtown or any of the other opportunities at UC or in Mount Auburn, you would not realize what you're driving by when you drive by 2020 Auburn Avenue. And I would invite you all to at least ask some questions, if not ask those who have been through, and to get to know the teachers who teach there, because there's some really fabulous people who are making the biggest difference in these kids' lives. I would be happy to answer any of your questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Judge Boom. I failed to say before I brought you up, we had you scheduled earlier in the year and rescheduled you. So thank you for making time before our summer break. And I think it's especially good timing given you were able to tell us about this summer program, which is great. Before we dive into questions, I saw Senator Catherine Ingram came in. So thank you, Senator, for joining us. She's in the back there. The one question for me, and then I'll pass it to all my colleagues up here, just kind of wave me down, is can you talk a little bit about Girls Court?
Sure. So Girls Court is the name that we have given to this, I don't know, amorphous thing that we started. So you're all aware that Commissioner Driehaus has the Commission on Women and Girls, and one of their assignments is to propose an idea that fixes a societal ill or obstacle. And what the girls came up with was what we are now calling Girls Court. And it's a group where girls come, quite literally come to our building at 264 William Howard Taft and are provided with services, conversations, and thoughts that aren't usually available for girls. So primarily in our criminal justice system and our juvenile justice system, our rehabilitative efforts are focused on males and kids that are boys, and usually even Black and brown males. We don't even have a lot of diversity of what we will offer because, well, that's a different conversation. So what I will say is that the idea about serving girls has always been on everyone's mind, but the how seemed insurmountable until we were charged from a group of teenage girls to say do better. It's a group that is 8 weeks long. The folks who are here with me today have all helped present, organize, pick up girls, drive them home, buy pizzas, and the like, because it is truly a homegrown organizational group that we ask our friends and colleagues and people in other fields to come in and really just give wraparound services in the way of almost like older sister advice. And we keep track of those girls in the way that when they need something, they call us. When they have a success, they call us. Their moms and their dads and their grandmas and their grandpas start to trust us, which is really an achievement. And so on the whole, we are getting a little bit more penetration into their life and into what we can help with. So.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm a big fan of the work you're doing with the systems partners as well, so thank you for sharing that. I'm going to turn it to Vice Chair, and then just wave me down for whoever's next.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Judge Bloom, for being here. You and I have had a number of conversations about the great work that you're doing. And with the presentation today, it's great to hear about all the positive things that are happening at the Youth Detention Center. You know, going back to a conversation you and I have had before, questions are raised all the time about, you know, our youth who are brought to the detention center and let go. They're maybe caught breaking into a car and immediately let go. And with all the good things happening there, people may wonder, well, why wouldn't you keep them there and give them access to these resources? And you've explained to me sort of the way that the state law works with respect to temporary restraints and ultimate consequences. I'm wondering if you could just touch on that here so others can hear it.
Absolutely. So it's a lovely question that comes in all different forms. And I believe it is usually from people who are really genuinely interested in why do these kids get back out? Well, stealing a car or being in a stolen car is charged as a felony of the 4th degree. A felony of the 4th degree, sometimes the 5th, a felony of the 4th or 5th degree under Ohio law is presumed probation for adults and for kids. And so what that means is that if this person, adult or kid, is found guilty or adjudicated, the law tells me they should get probation unless there are aggravating factors. So as we've talked about, Councilman, you know, when there are several of these charges or higher charges or other risk factors with a certain child, then I can deviate from the law. But in general, if a child is presumed to receive probation, what is immediate incarceration going to do? The other thing is that the Ohio law, the presumption is that a child will be released upon arrest unless, so the law says unless. And so there isn't a, well, if they're charged with X offense, they should be held or shall be held. It is, they shall be released unless. And so following that law very carefully might seem contrary, as we've talked about before, contrary to public interest or even, maybe even common sense at some times, but it's what the law says. And so we follow the law very, very closely. The other thing that I will tell you is that the data and statistics from many federal agencies as well as national organizations tell courts that for every day a child spends in a detention center, their likelihood of returning to detention and going to adult prison rises. Their likelihood of graduating decreases sharply, and their likelihood of returning to their home becomes almost nothing. And so if we know that's the risk that we're creating by keeping a kid for 1 night, 2 nights, or 3 nights, and we know that even if they're adjudicated of the charges that they are charged with, they're getting probation, it makes it very complicated to think, let me make this risk and this decision on behalf of our entire city and our county so that the optics are good. It isn't supported by data or law.
Thank you for sharing that. I've heard it from you a number of times, and I've repeated it to as many people as who will listen, and I hope others who have now heard from you will also share that information. So thank you.
I'm going to go to Dr. Moffett. Dr. Moffett, Vice President.
So I want to really highlight, I think it's page 3. It starts with the role of juvenile court detention, just because I've had the opportunity to attend the graduation. But I want to highlight some things specifically for your team and our staff, because I think you mentioned it, but it's really, we kind of highlighted, we went over it way too quickly. The number of graduations under your tenure, and with the collaborative effort of our staff since you've taken over, have been significant. 24 students have earned their high school diploma. Then that's the CPS side. They haven't all been CPS students.
That's right.
But they've come through CPS. I've had the opportunity in collaboration with my colleague, Board Member Mapp, and Board Member Crosset to attend the graduations and confer diplomas. But the work of Dr. House, her team, and your staff has been phenomenal in getting students graduated from where they were to actually earning their diploma. They don't give diplomas, they earn their diploma, and seeing the transformation. Can you talk about, and I know the number, but can you talk about prior to your tenure in the previous administration, the number was less than 5.
I think 0.
Yeah, and then to see 24 students since 23 actually have earned their diploma. I've only been to the male graduations, but to see that many young men and hear their stories is amazing. Is amazing, and just speak to that because that's significant. And their families come in. It really is transformational, and I don't want us to miss that. And I want to make sure that I say and invite my colleagues to also share that. A special thank you to your team, your staff, your dedication, and to our team as well, because that is a commitment that they make authentically, and it is working. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the accolades, and thank you to everyone who has attended. It is remarkable anytime a child graduates from high school, given the obstacles they face in the world today. It's particularly remarkable when they graduate and they have been homeless most of their life. When they come to us, they can't read. They have 0 credits when they come in, or they have other legal challenges that might prevent them from getting their diploma on the outside. Our goal and our responsibility is to look at a kid when they're in detention as a kid, not as their charge and not as their past. The law tells us to look to their future and make it as bright as we can, both for their safety and all of ours. I can't speak enough about how wonderful our staff has been at the detention center as far as embracing some of the new things we ask them to do, like having graduations and having more than one kid come from more than one pod and sit in the gym together and have their parents and their little siblings. And, we do a lot of things pretty differently, and it's all going well. the motivation to graduate and get your family to come there and see you, and have our photographer take your picture, which is something your family can then keep forever, is just something that I don't think I understood before I saw it. I didn't understand the importance of a mother and a grandmother, and a father and uncles seeing someone that they worry about, they're scared for, and now they wonder what their future will be in such a traditionally, I want to say, normal kid place of graduation, and they draw on their caps and it's all silly and ridiculous. It just is very moving, and we wouldn't be able to do it without Cincinnati Public, without the dedication of Dr. House, and Principal Gorley, who is just like the most wildly excitable, dedicated person on this earth, and when it comes to education, and these kids. And so we also offer you a great thanks.
Thank you. Vice Mayor. Or sorry, Doctor. Do you have any other questions? Okay. Vice Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations, Judge Bloom. This is really phenomenal. Councilmember Albie and I were looking at the numbers. I mean, fantastic. So a question, just a few quick questions. So the service navigators, I'm looking here, and it says 1 year post-program completion, 81.5% of youth assigned to a service navigator did not receive a new adjudication. These service navigators obviously are really phenomenal. So just tell us, like, what's the criteria for being a service navigator, and what do they do?
Sure. So they are our pre-trial group. To be a service navigator, you have to have the type of people skills to stick with it and to be really on these families and kids. But their actual skills include good communication, and connecting folks with services that they are eligible for, that their insurance will pay for, if they're Medicaid, that their Medicaid will pay for, and that are in their neighborhoods. So I am not going to, as the service navigator, I'm not going to sign, Councilmember Albie up for services in Woodlawn if it is that she lives in Avondale. And we weren't considering that before. We weren't considering the obstacles that created. We just thought, let's get people in services as fast as we can. But so the navigators are truly support people for parents, or custodians or guardians, and our schools. So Cincinnati Public has, we have a relationship with the social workers who help us when we need them, which is always, but when we have questions, and then we help them with what we can do for them for students who might be experiencing maybe some truancy or some absenteeism. And so to your question, a service navigator is a person in the world who wants people to succeed.
I love that. Okay, next, Summer of Discovery. We're really excited to hear you when you, made the announcement. The pretrial orders will include, like, getting that library card, getting that membership to the rec center if they can't afford it, their funds for that for the whole family, and then bringing their report card to show you. So it's Summer of Discovery, but will that continue? Because I think that is excellent. Are we going to just keep doing that? I
Doesn't
hope
that
so.
seem like a good idea? I think that it will morph when kids go back to school. So we will have to take into account that they should be at school, in their school gym, and, experiencing rec through healthy and safe things in their schools. So I do think that it will have a different iteration, but making sure that kids and families know about the opportunities in their community is something that the court is committed to year-round.
Okay, so some more to come with that.
More to come.
Fall of discovery, winter of discovery, spring of it. We're going to keep
Yeah.
discovering. Okay. Okay, and then the last thing, you talked about this, and I was just, wanting to hear more about the change from 2022 to when your administration came in 2023, and the change in culture that really moved the needle on progress with recidivism.
I would say that until I saw these numbers myself, I didn't I didn't realize how big of change there had been. And I would say that, it's not just the court, it's the communities, it's the schools, it's the city, it's the different approach from law enforcement. There are all different types of factors that play into public safety. At the court, though, I will say that the transformation that we have done with, one, how we treat kids when they're in 2020. So instead of a more of a penal-based system, we have a behavior-based positive enforcement system, which is also a national model that's meant to, you guys have PBIS in school, yeah, okay, PBIS, which we didn't have before, and we do that in 2020 now, and it's wonderful. I'll tell you guys about it later. And so, that really helps kids change the way they think while they're with us, and helps them not come back to us. I'll also say, though, that one of the biggest changes that our administration has made is the way we invest what's called reclaim dollars. So that's state money, it's all of our taxpayer dollars, and the court is the keeper, the giver of the money. And how we decide to do that is based on what organizations are going to work the closest with the kids who are at the highest risk to keep them out of the court. All of it is rehabilitation based. And really through no fault of the organizations, there had been, some sort of, I guess I would say, siloing of how the court was sending kids and where they were sending them. We have diversified that like really a lot to where it's a lot of a spreadsheet to look at. But I attribute that close community connection with a kid and a family with their propensity to stay in contact with and rely on those services. I think that's a really big deal. The other thing is that we have really changed in this county and in this city how we talk about kids and how we talk about guns and how we talk about what's allowable and what's not allowable. And it might not seem like that, but I would just say go back to some of the Enquirer articles, no shade, Cam Knight, but go back to some of the Enquirer articles from 22 and look at the words we were using and look at how we were talking about kids and families. We as a group of leaders have changed, and that matters. And that matters to the point that when you tell a kid they're bad, they'll be bad. I mean, we all know that. When you tell a kid they're good or they can be good, they'll at least think about it. And so we don't have to walk around saying that, everybody's good. We could, but we definitely shouldn't be walking around saying everybody's bad. And we, as a collective whole, have done that. And I really attribute a lot of the success in my court to community movements like those.
Yeah, labels matter for sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I want to give a shout out to Ray from the libraries here since they're part of the Summer of Discovery. So thank you to our library partners. Board Member Matt.
Thank you, Judge Bloom, for the presentation. It was so good you answered a lot of my questions, as well as my colleagues have already presented the questions. But I really appreciate your holistic approach and the restorative approach and just your collaboration with community partners to shift the culture, as has already been stated. I do want to ask about how you are supporting or how the court supports families. So in the event that a parent has noticed behaviors with their child, especially the summer is approaching or as we get into the school year, and they're recognizing their child have not attended school. What guidance or direction do we provide to the parents that want to make sure that they're being preventative and proactive to offer that support? And then also, can you speak to just the shift in the truancy conversation or chronic absenteeism conversation as it relates to that parent input as well?
Sure. So parents are always welcome to visit 264 William Howard Taft, which is the assessment center, and ask for connection to services. You don't have to be involved with the court. I prefer you weren't involved with the court when you got connected to services. We can't necessarily, do all the things that we can do for you if your kid is involved in the court, but we will help you. And we will give you guidance on where else to seek help in the particular situation that you're in. We do not have enough support for parents and families as a society. And I would love to bear that burden myself, but really only some of that is for the court and for the schools. A lot of it is for the rest of us to decide that we'd like to provide that support in lots of different ways. That being said, you can always call the court and we will always try to figure it out. As far as chronic absenteeism or truancy, it's a significant problem, and I think it will always be a significant problem until we address the reasons kids don't go to school, which is not usually because they don't want to. It is almost always because there is a different obstacle that is in their place. And you all know that. But that is one of the reasons that a report card is part of the Summer of Discovery, to find out what is the obstacle and to help navigate around it. We do our truancy dockets to try to do the exact same thing. So most of the time when a truancy docket wraps up, we're finding parents' furniture, we're getting them bus passes, we are addressing things in their home life that help them prioritize education. Because if you're hungry and you're homeless, school is not at the top of the list. And just to make it personal, you know, I have 2 children and a partner, and we both work, and getting my kid to school on time every day is a chore, I'll say. She's you know, she's got her dad's attitude, so that's different, but it's a lot. It's a lot, and we drive. And so I think about that all the time, and all of our staff think about, you know, the obstacles that parents face, and it's easy to point fingers and place blame, and it's harder to ask why, and it's scarier to ask why sometimes, but that's absolutely what we've been doing, and I know that's what the school system has been doing as well.
Thank you. I appreciate you highlighting that, because even in the conversation as it pertains to parents, it's not a punitive approach. It's trying to have a concerted effort to remove those barriers and to support them through that lens. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Judge, we know you need to get back for court. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Thank you for keep us posted if there's anything we can do as a city, as a school board to support your work, and it's just amazing progress.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, appreciate
Thank you,
you all.
Judge Bloom. Yeah. All right. Okay, we're going to be shifting gears now into talking about pedestrian safety around schools. So we're going to have 2 presentations, and what we're going to do is we're going to have them both present first and then do 1 set of questions after both presentations. So if we can bring first up our Department of Transportation, Director Long and Mel McVeigh. We'll have you all present. Oh, okay. Okay. Or just Director Long. All right. And as he pulls this up, so we'll do DOTE first, and then our health department is going to present about safe routes to schools, and then we can all do a round of questions, and we'll have whoever is the right expert answer the questions. And I know Councilmember Jeffries has to go, so I will turn it over to him first for remarks. All right, Director Long, all yours.
Good afternoon to the chair, to the council members, committee members. Thank you for your time and attention. A little closer, all right. I'll move this up then. The presentation that we're going to give today is related to the traffic calming near schools, and much of the work that we do in the Department of Transportation Engineering is centered around our traffic calming program. The basic issue that we have here is speeding and distracted driving, quite frankly. The engineering controls along with enforcement efforts are the 2 pillars of traffic calming that is used to address speeding and distracted driving. We do prioritize projects and programs addressing our vulnerable users in the transportation network. So I'll walk through some slides here to get into some details related to defining what a school zone is for the purpose of the data that you've got in front of you. The easy way to think of this is the school property lines pushed forward to the street, and that is what the Ohio Revised Code defines as a school zone. Quite narrow, okay? So what we wanted to do was look at this a little more broadly. So the data that you have before you is wrapped around a 1,000-foot circular buffer around the schools. This was an attempt to address areas where the vulnerable users would be coming to and from schools. So we're trying to make sure that we have enough data captured that it's meaningful and not so myopic that we missed anything. As we go through these slides, what I'm going to do is talk about the data at a very high level, and then we're going to filter through this and get down to a different way to look at this. So in general, this was all crashes, and we did it over a 3-year period as a look back. That's kind of standard industry practice. What we found was that there's a total of 35,000 crashes, and we broken them out into the subset that was within that 1,000-foot of a school and the related percentage of that, as you see before you here. So as I mentioned, the next set of data here, we're going to kind of filter through that and look at it more closely. The crash data that you have in front of you here is related to our pedestrian and bike crashes. And so again, this is total crashes for the 3-year period. And the number that were within the boundary of the school zone, about a third of that is what the information here is showing. This is pretty expected in terms of the data as we looked at it, and that's simply because of where the pedestrian populations typically are. They're going to be around schools, rec centers, neighborhood business districts, high areas like that. So it's usually like a third of that is where we would expect that to be. So this is not unexpected in terms of the data. What we wanted to do here, and the reason we have this slide in front of you, is to show that during commute hours, so when kids are coming to and from school, we want to kind of focus on that. So during the August to May timeframe, what do the crashes look like? Did this give us any different insight from just crashes more broadly with pedestrians and vulnerable users? And so again, similar kind of outcome here, right? Smaller data set, but the percentages are similar. So that's kind of what this slide's trying to show. When it's reduced down to its finest level of the filter here, this is what the data shows. Again, it's a similar percentage of that. The data here, again, falls within that kind of expected outcome of where we were. So this was not different than what we initially had thought. I'm going to flip over into the speed observations that we collected here, and we did this around 6 schools in the area on 2 separate days. And what I want to highlight here is the operating hours for motorists in school zones is 20 miles per hour, and that's the legal statutory speed for when children are present. That's how our school zones are set up. The speeds that are on the street are set up by the state, and either for the schools that we looked at here, were either 25 mile per hour streets or 35 mile per hour streets, and that depends on what type of street you're on. Think of it like this: the higher speeds are generally the busier streets, more congested streets. The lower speeds are usually like the residential or smaller streets. So on this slide, we have noted that speeding is present, but the speeds are generally within 5 miles per hour of the posted speed limits outside the school hours. So in other words, people are used to going near the speed limit around the schools. They tend to forget and do it during school hours as well. So again, fair amount of speeding shown here, but we think the data is indicative of people's behaviors and not recognizing where they are when kids are around. This is a deep dive into the school and the observations that we had. This kind of pulls it out for each individual observation. So this table summarizes that finding. Again, the higher volume streets had higher percentages of speeding, and that's closer to the posted speed limits. While there are some outliers, it was primarily not in excess of 40 miles per hour. Still a high number. I do want to highlight the traffic calming program and the work that we do in the department. Just to highlight this in a few bullet points for you here. It is a competitive program. We do work with all of the community councils to identify streets for consideration in our funding cycles. So we have criteria here that are listed. A lot of this is based on the data that I just presented, speed and crash data. We do prioritize these locations for high pedestrian generators with this competitive program. The projects are funded in a ranked order and brought on as the budget allows. So I don't have an endless supply of money to do this, but I am able to do countermeasures or engineering controls. So I can walk you through a little bit of what those are here. So that's like an updated school flasher. So that's the little wig-wag yellow reminder that this is what the school zone and the speed limit is. I have crosswalk lines that we refresh. We'll put in the piano key lines. A lot of times we'll have speed cushions, some raised crosswalks, bump outs, things like that that we've done as a department over the years. The list of projects that we've done over the last 5 years, we've done a little over 260 improvements to schools, and I know you had council members had a report issued this morning to you that kind of highlighted that, so that's also as an appendix there. So that's kind of the presentation as I have it for you. I understand we'll have to do one more, and then, so the questions slide, I'll pop back up in a minute for that.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Director. And then we'll welcome our health department up now, Tiffany White and Scott Dean, to talk about safe routes to schools. And that report Director Long mentioned, hopefully for our school board members, hopefully this was sitting in front of you with the little circle in front, but that's the report with kind of the in-depth information. And I appreciate the flexibility with the swapping in, swapping out. Welcome. Over to you.
Thank you all for having us. My name is Tiffany White. I'm the Health Programs Manager for our Healthy Communities programs at the Health Department, and I'm joined by Scott.
Hello, my name is Scott Dean. I'm the Active Living Coordinator for Cincinnati Health Department. And I will kind of kick off the presentation. So as the Active Living Coordinator, what I do is I work with various communities and help them identify barriers to people being physically active. In the course of doing that work, we run into, students walking and biking and just trying to access schools safely. And we want to make sure that the roads are safe for everyone to use. So everyone may be asking, like, what is a Safe Routes to School plan, or SRTS? It's also commonly referred to as a school travel plan. It's pretty much as I taking a look at what the landscape of the city is and how students are accessing school. So how are you catching the bus? Are you walking, you biking, are you carpooling? You look at all of that information and you compile a plan on what is the best way to create a safe and effective route for a student to get to school. In my case, I want more people walking or biking to school. So that's what we're really looking at, and that's what ODOT likes us to look at when we're crafting these plans as well. So with ODOT in creating this Safe Routes to School plan, there are two different funding mechanisms that they allow you to access once you have a plan in place. The first is for infrastructure projects. So what they do is they look at a 2-mile radius of a school that's been identified within the plan that you're working with, and they can do infrastructure projects. So a good example of this is recently, our Department of Transportation and Engineering has applied for funding for a project on Court Street, and that would impact Hayes Porter, Taft High School, and Performing Arts. We're still waiting to hear if we receive that award, but because we had a plan in place, we were able to apply for funding for that project, and I believe that project will have a protected bicycle lane, some traffic calming, and a couple other features that it make it a lot easier for students to get to school safely, walking or biking. Then there's non-infrastructure activities. So these can be like educational things. Some schools have robust like programming around students walking or biking to school. We could do some things around bike bus or what is it? The students crossing guards, and the walking school bus. That's what it is. So those are other things that we're able to access once we have a plan in place.
One thing that we do want to mention with the infrastructure projects, the timeline for the funds is a little bit complicated, and so you apply and then you receive those funds 3 years later. So based on DOTE's priority list, some of those projects have already been checked off in that 3-year window. And so when we're looking at updating the SRTS plan, we want to make sure we're working very closely with DOTE to see what the pipeline is and what could be projected for that 3-year. So we'll be building out the SRTS for 5 years, but really we're looking at that full 8-year window because that's when we'd be eligible for funding to actually come to us in that time frame.
So our previous plan was completed right at the turn of COVID. So while there was not an opportunity to robustly complete some of the projects and things within that plan, we do have some things that we've been able to gather from our partners at CPS of things that have been done around some schools. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you see that there's some non-flashing speed signs, painted crosswalks, some new speed limit signs, crossing guards. We've had some bump outs and four-way stops implemented. So there's different projects that have been completed. We can get you all a copy of this old plan if you all like to take a look at it. But this old plan did have some barriers to it. So we worked with a tool design on crafting the previous plan, and their feedback was that it was far too encompassing because it covered the whole district. So it ended up leading to a lot of watered down recommendations on what could be done. So in their suggestion on updating the plan, they want us to focus on like 3 or 4 like schools, and then taking that 2-mile radius, we could see like where we could have more impact and getting more stuff done to make our applications a lot more attractive to ODOT. So again, why update the SRTS plan? The plans are only good for 5 years, so we are right on that mark. This last project that DOT applied for was the last project that was eligible within that plan. So if we want to leverage funding and try to get more dollars coming in from ODOT, we have to have an updated plan. Another thing is there have been a lot of road changes. So we've been deploying speed cushions, all of these different traffic calming measures. Like we need to get a stock of everything that's been completed so that we can know like what we still need or what we could possibly do in addition to make the community safer for students to walk and bike to school. The other big thing is what CPS has undergone with some school restructuring. So a good example is Roll Hill School. It used to be K through 3, and then after 3rd grade, they would go to Ethel Taylor, which was 4, 5, and 6. Now Ethel Taylor is a middle school. Roll Hill is like Roll Hill School. It has K through 6. So the students that are traveling from South Cumminsville, Millville, are all traveling up the hill, and then vice versa. So that whole thing is different. So you have different kids accessing different schools in different ways. So we want to make sure that they can do so in a safe manner.
And then the other wonderful thing, and we've already mentioned that tool design was a big part of the last plan development, but they're also allowing us to use tool design through our Creating Healthy Communities grants for technical assistance without an additional charge. And so we have the Creating Healthy Communities grant through the Ohio Department of Health. This is our second year with that grant. The first year, one of the active living strategies that we completed was the traffic garden at Roll Hill, and that was where we started working with the resource coordinator and the principal there and kind of talking about the surrounding area and some different changes that they would like to see both with infrastructure and non-infrastructure improvements. And that's kind of what got us into the Safe Routes to School plan update and starting to look at that. And so our goal would be to utilize this Creating Healthy Communities grant as leveraged funds, but also being able to do traffic gardens, such as the one that we did at Roll Hill, with the Safe Routes to School plan update and non-infrastructure funding, if that is what the community wants to see. So, like we said earlier, the tool design did recommend starting to identify prioritized schools instead of doing all the schools within CPS's district. So we have been working with some key stakeholders, including DOTE, ODOT, OKI, Tri-State Trails, and CPS to start to focus on which schools would be prioritized for this plan update. We wanted to see the youth-involved crashes and what that looked like across the city. So this map shows you that we see within a quarter mile of each school, those larger green circles are the buffer for the schools. Then we have the accidents or the involved crashes and the injury severity. So with this map, you can see a lot of the dots are kind of centered around the core of the city, but the more severe orange and red dots are more concentrated on the west side of the city. And then we also wanted to see what that looked like with median household income. As health department employees, we like to look at social drivers of health, and oftentimes we do see families that have a lower income or are living in poverty experience a higher rate of chronic illnesses and unfortunately lower life expectancy. And so when we're trying to tackle that, we're going to be looking at those social drivers of health, which includes access and active living, which is Scott's specialty. And so we wanted to make sure that we were looking at that so that every child had fair and equal opportunity for active transportation to school. So the stakeholders decided on the West Corridor, but as you can see, there are a lot of schools within the West Corridor, so that doesn't narrow us down to just 3 or 4. So we kind of put together a little table that goes over the data from that map and looks at the total number of crashes within the quarter-mile radius of the schools, also looks at the injury or the fatal crashes and ranks those schools based on the severity of those crashes. And then we also have a household income indicator. Now, some of these schools are within the same quarter-mile radius, and once we do the full Safe Routes to School plan, these will be stretched out to a 2-mile radius. So our goal with finalizing the prioritized schools would be to encompass as many schools within those 2-mile radiuses as possible, but have one school where we do thorough engagement and ensure that we are working with students, family, community members, school administration, so they are the ones that are actively picking the strategies that would work for their community, in line with, of course, what DOTE is capable of and what we're able to provide for education. And so with this chart, if you can see in the household income section, there's a couple that have similar colors. So the top 2, Western Hills and Dater High School, those are obviously in the same area, and so that's why those are highlighted. Same with Gamble Montessori Elementary and Roll Hill, they are in the same area, and then Gamble Montessori High School and Westwood School. So there's opportunity to impact quite a few schools just within that 2-mile radius. And so while we're prioritizing schools, that is what we will take into consideration. So I say as we are prioritizing schools, there's a lot of different stakeholders involved. It's not just the health department, like I mentioned. We have formed 2 different working groups to make sure that we're moving collectively and prioritizing schools based on data. So we have a quantitative data working group. This one will look at the school demographics and how kids get to school and develop maps for the Safe Routes to School plan. We also have an engagement working group, so this will be more of that qualitative side, working with families, working with students and community members that will be impacted by the Safe Routes to School plan and ensuring that they are a huge part of the conversation. We work with the community engagement spectrum. This is especially important through our Creating Healthy Communities grant, and we want to lean towards that collaborate and empower side to make sure that the changes that are implemented through the Safe Routes to School plan are actually accepted by the community and have impact. So I'll have Scott kind of talk about some of the engagement that we've done or will be doing.
So Tiffany touched on mapping, that is kind of really closely tied to our quantitative working group. They can utilize the GIS systems and create things like the map that we showed where you can see like the buffer and where the accidents are occurring. But we'll leverage that mapping opportunity to kind of map out like how are students like traveling to school? Like what is your current route? Like is there a better route that would be more conducive to walking or biking that's safer that we can kind of outline and highlight? We can conduct walk audits. So once we've identified schools, we can take the students out and kind of go look at the built environment, see what we're observing as the cars are traversing the streets. Like, do we notice speeding? Like, is a crosswalk, does it have a zebra stripe to it? Are there raised crosswalks? Like, just what is happening in the built environment that could possibly be improved upon. Then we could do town halls as another way to do engagement. Usually for us, a town hall and working with these communities usually tends to line up more with like parent-teacher conference night when we already have the parents in the building, so we can at least capture their impact. Sometimes we come to schools, like maybe during like a planning bill or something, or right before lunch, or if there's a class that we can interact with, and we'll pull them together, have them do an activity. For example, when I did some work in Roll Hill, I had kids draw what they saw on their way to school, and they drew these maps, and we were able to take a lot of that data and include that in the traffic garden that we ended up putting in place there. So that's why you saw like a Putz Creamy Whip, and then there was a church that everyone talked about that was incorporated into that design. So the next one.
One thing I did want to mention with this is the working groups that we have for both quantitative and qualitative. We do want students to be involved in those, and so as we come back into school session, they'll be asked to join those working groups. So then we are moving intentionally with those working groups and taking their thoughts into consideration when it comes to planning.
So our next steps moving forward, as Tiffany mentioned, we're trying to confirm our advisory team members. Definitely prioritizing parents and students in the engagement efforts. A lot of the qualitative efforts, those will probably be done by like our GIS specialists, the people that deal with like the mapping and everything, things that are way above my head that I cannot even begin to wrap my mind around. We want to finalize our school prioritization and commitment. This is really important to us, and this is also where we want to make sure that we're on board and on the same page with CPS, because we want to make sure that the schools that we're targeting, like these are schools that CPS feels comfortable with, and that the people at the schools, they have the bandwidth to be able to meaningfully engage in this work. Our goal is to start our engagement efforts this upcoming fall, so when school gets back in session, so that we can kind of capture some of that energy around being back in school. So hopefully we can catch people before they get way too busy. And the goal is to kind of wrap up the work around Thanksgiving, early December, so we can synthesize it, create some maps and everything from the quantitative group, and then merge it all together into a cohesive plan that we can roll out in January of 2027.
All right, wonderful, thank you. I'm going to bring Director Long back up, and then just because I know Councilmember Jeffries has to run out, I'm going to pass it to him first and then open it up to everyone else for comments and questions.
Thank you, and thank you for letting me crash this committee since I don't serve on it. But thank you to all of you. I know on the Safe Route to School, my staff has been in your every other week meeting for several years, I think. And so really appreciate all of your work on that. And I'm excited for the plan, especially like holistically looking at it. I mean, things like sidewalks, there are a lot of places in the city that don't have sidewalks. And so just implementing things like that. And we're putting this up because DOTE did this little graphic, and I wanted to showcase their work. It's not my work. But we asked for the report on crashes, and I think it just visually, I think it really captures a lot of the issue. I mean, if you think about 8,500 crashes, I did the math, that's over 3 years. That's an average of almost 8 crashes a day in school zones. And then 1310 is an average of about 1 per day. So you think about that, that's a lot. Plus the near misses. There's a lot of near misses. You hear a lot from parents of cars that are out and almost hit. So maybe not a crash, but almost hit. So I think that once you frame it that way, I think it's really it's really an issue that we haven't fully solved. We've made progress. So I think the Safe Route to School is certainly going to be a big piece of it. The DOT solutions that you're currently working on, and folks in Clifton, for example, I know you're rolling up your sleeves. Thank you for partnering with Clifton on a lot of those issues, literally down to the block of what to do. Appreciate that. But I do think to the public comment around enforcement, I think that is the other leg of this, that we do need to continue to push on enforcement, especially in school zones. I know we've talked, my colleague Anna Albee was doing a lot of work and we're in discussion around, should we look at cameras in school zones again? Currently, we do not have allow cameras, speed cameras or traffic cameras in the city at all. But is that something that we should revisit? I mean, this data is very compelling. So I think it's a discussion that we definitely should have. We need more enforcement. I think engineering solutions are part of it. Some of the holistic solutions are part of it. But I think all of us probably need to think about everything and open even the discussion around things like cameras in school zones. So with that, thank you again for letting me to crash this committee. Really appreciate everyone's work.
Absolutely, thank you. Any questions or comments? I've got a couple, but I'm happy to wait. Okay, well, thank you for this. And just building off what Councilmember Jeffrey said around the enforcement, that's tough in a school zones, right? Because if you have a cop who's sitting there doing a traffic stop, like you can imagine as normal, right? If a car speeds by, then you have suddenly 2 cars speeding through a school zone. So that's why some of the structural improvements we've made with speed cushions and road diets and that have been so helpful, because it is a way to calm traffic without increasing risk, and why looking at other solutions, as Councilmember Jeffries mentioned, is potentially a safer way to do that enforcement piece. Around the data, one of the questions I have recently, a couple of us have a mutual friend whose son was on a scooter and was hit on his way, or nearby a school on his way to school. As we look at the speed data, and as we think about safe routes to schools, how does, are electric scooters part of the data collection when we think of crashes? And same question, so first for DOT and then for health departments, we think of safe routes and other alternative methods for travel.
Through the chair, yes, the vulnerable user, whether it's a bicyclist, pedestrian, electric scooter, whatever, will be classified as in the event that's recorded by the police, they call them a unit, so it'll be described as unit this and unit that occurred in the crash. So doesn't matter, just think of it as a pedestrian or a car, either way.
Okay, so the scooters, because I tried looking at the law, technically in the situation with a motorized scooter, it's more likely categorized as a vehicle versus a pedestrian, or different from a bike. Am I understanding that correctly?
To the chair, yes, the assignment of electric vehicles as a motorist in the roadway is the proper assignment. The reality of that is there are those that choose to use that on sidewalks and everything else too. So it's a little bit of both. Like the crash data specifically will call out whether that is a pedestrian or a bike user. That's kind of where they would be classified.
Yep. Thank you. And to pass it to Health Department on the safe routes, I think there's a challenge here around whether it's e-bikes or e-scooters, especially for kids going to and from school, because we don't necessarily have protected bike lanes everywhere. And the electric bikes and scooters technically are not allowed on the sidewalk, which means that kids, teenagers or younger might be in the roadway. So as you think about the safe routes to school, can you talk a little bit about how to think about addressing that issue?
I can do it. Absolutely. I think it's definitely more of new landscape that we're exploring, and they're definitely gaining traction. One of the things that we've seen from the health perspective is the amount of TBIs going up related to scooters and e-bikes. And so a part of that is the non-infrastructure changes as well, looking at the education at a young age to make sure that kids that are using these e-bikes and motorized scooters are using their helmets appropriately. Scott leads the Put a Lid on It program through the American Academy of Pediatrics and offers helmets to children throughout Cincinnati and make sure that they fit correctly. And so that's one piece of it. And then I don't know if you want to include anything on the bike path or.
So another group that is also working on a longer term project is we're working on like mapping all of the walk sheds, and it's actually going to be in the tri-state. It just so happens that Cincinnati is part of kind of like the test area. So they're mapping in GIS all of the street, sidewalk infrastructure and everything. And once they have all of that data mapped out, then we'll be able to kind of compile like even safer like routes in order to get to common destinations that they may be trying to get to. So for example, like we'll just say a kid was trying to get to West High from somewhere in Montana, they may be able to take the scooter, cut through a park, and then like take a back way where there's not as much traffic, and then they'd be able to like daylight and then of course follow all appropriate traffic laws and everything to get closer to the school. But it kind of takes them away from having to interact with traffic. Another thing is just, and I'm sure DOT is definitely mindful of this, just like as we're like reconstructing roadways and everything, like if there's a chance to like have a wider sidewalk, if there's a possibility, if the traffic allows for it to have like a protected bike lane, just things like that. Those are things that could also help to go a long way.
Director, do you want to weigh in? Because that, I think, talks a lot about complete streets and how the city's working towards that.
To the chair, absolutely, yes. That is all factored in part of our complete streets policies. We do, as we triage through every project, go through and make sure that the elements that we have that are related to the vulnerable users that we've talked about are identified, are prioritized, are programmed in. It's kind of part of our normal cadence. So when there's opportunities to do that, we absolutely pick those up. It's built into the way we do business.
All right, I'm doing a quick scan. Board Member Bolton.
Thank you very much, and thanks for this report. I really appreciate it. Having been around the first time for the big one, which was the whole district, I do think we were the only ones, the city and district, that did a whole city one. And it was overwhelming, and I can understand now, and I appreciate you going into the areas where the need would be and where there's change, and also kind of adopting the corridor approach, which is new to us, and I think that's very helpful. A couple of things, the camera piece, I recoil in the thought of it, but there probably is some room for partnership between the district and the city, because I think there is probably a need for greater camera activity, campus and streetwise. I hate to say that, but I think that could be helpful. I know Justin Jeffries, of all people, has talked extensively about the idea of cameras during in school zones, and as a need. I think also the state is starting to allow us to make more severe punishment for speeding or any kind of infraction in a school zone. And I think that's something to look at, as you all have done that with the take over the street approach, that this is serious and we got to deal with it in a serious way. Two things just to throw in that's of interest, I think, is that just anecdotally, where many of our kids have been injured or hurt is actually trying to get to the bus. And we know that metro stops change periodically, but we also know there are permanent metro stops. And I think it might be wise to look there as well as a place regarding the safety zone around schools. Another thing that CPS is working on is trying to find a way, talking in terms of the holistic approach to transportation and what have you, and safety, is we are really looking hard now at trying to find a way to connect all of the developing walking paths throughout the city. And it's amazing how so many of them connect with our schools, and whether they're going through Woodlands or whether they're going on a street or whatever. And it's really been a visually impressive, kind of provocative way to even look at the schools. I also want to, just real quick, I know that some years ago there was a study, a street study, a safety study for the Clifton area. And if I recall, the Clifton folks were a little bit perturbed, or more than perturbed, because the study stopped right before that high density piece. But I think that's been overcome. But it is, both as a recreation commissioner and also on the school board, that density there, as well as family in one of those schools, that is a high priority and should be. And finally, the changing communities and changing makeup of our schools. Thank you for even knowing that and being aware of it, and please involve us in our administration in any way that you can. Thank you so much.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you for this. It's, it's hard because, we're doing better for sure. We've done a lot of street calming, but then we still know there's so much to do. And so I'm looking at some of your data, like about the largest number of drivers speeding around Woodward High School and Withrow. And I'm thinking, okay, so Woodward's on Reading Road and people are just flying up and down Reading Road. Madison Road for Withrow, people are flying up and down Madison Road. And then, so my question is there anything else we can do? I know we've put in speed humps, and I think that helps. I mean, I'm sure that's helping in some way for sure, although people complain about them. But when they complain to me, I say that's because drivers are driving too fast. So, like, we just got to deal with it, right? You got to slow down. Although I do see people like, aeroplaning over it. It's what can you do there? And I was looking at Euler, one strip outside of Euler, there's a speed hump, and so the community, which is great, and the community put planters around it, which calls attention to it. And I thought, oh, that's a good idea, right? Because it really makes you kind of stop to slow down and look at the flowers and all of that. So I just wonder, is there anything we're not thinking about? And then, the other thing, I'm thinking about Glenway too, how people are speeding up and down there. And maybe the worst one is probably Colerain. Because, I never talk to anybody who lives in Mount Airy without hearing a complaint about Colerain. And we've put in lights, we've put in humps, and they're, I'm sure things are better, the data is better, but it's still, they keep saying it's still a speedway. So what do we need to look at next? We're kind of going in the right direction, I think, but we still have a ways to go.
I can jump in here. I think the education piece is something that we really could explore a lot more. So, for example, like with our traffic gardens that we put in, the reason why we even create these traffic gardens or have been trying to deploy them with schools is because it gives the students an opportunity to learn how to navigate traffic in a self-contained environment so they can do so safely. They ride bikes, and there are certain decision points within the traffic garden. So they may come to a four-way stop. There may be a roundabout in there, maybe train tracks. It's a lot of things that they encounter in the real world in this traffic garden. So the earlier they're learning to navigate these things, as they get older and actually become drivers, hopefully the future generations are doing better than we currently are right now. So I think that education piece is something that we really could lean into.
So do we have traffic gardens now, and where are they? Which schools have them?
I'm going to go back to the one that we implemented last year. So Rural Hills School has one of them. And then there are 3 others. But the unfortunate thing is some of that school restructuring did impact the traffic gardens. And so Ethel Taylor was one that had a traffic garden as well. That's now a middle school. So it's not utilized as frequently as it was when there were elementary school children using it. And so there's 4 total, and then there are plans to implement one at Westwood School this coming year through the CHC grant.
Love that. That gets to, the push for driver's education is something we've got to do, but this is good. This is great. Thank you.
And I believe we voted yesterday to approve the applying for that grant, which included a couple other great things, and community gardens and a food pantry as well across the city. Dr. Moffett? Oh, nope, getting pointed this way. Board Member Mapp.
Yes, just really quickly, I know that you talked about the education component with our elementary students. Our high school students have done great work, particularly Western Hills High School, around just kind of that education piece and having a commercial. Is there any way that our high school students are able to help support our elementary learners with navigating traffic safely? Or is that something that you all may have possibly considered?
Yes, we were actually just speaking on that today as far as the work groups go, and how Western Hills does have such a good program. And we were like, if we could use their program as a model, that would be amazing, and implementing that in other high schools, but also involving them in the engagement piece for the Safe Routes to School plan update. So if they could be a part of the engagement work group, we can go into the elementary schools and start working with them to see what kind of things that how the high school could work with the elementary school in education. Absolutely.
And just another thing along the lines of with the traffic garden, there is a curriculum that we have helped to develop with some experts, and we have sent it to our partner at Green Umbrella, and she was passing it along to the curriculum team for them to review. But it does have like lessons within it that should align with state standards around STEM things. So the traffic garden is not just a place to learn to ride a bike. Like you can learn geometry, like it's a lot of different things that it can be used for. So
Thank you. I really appreciate hearing that information.
Dr. Moffett.
So I'm just going to be a little vulnerable here. I didn't know about some of the things that you're sharing, like the traffic garden and things like that. I think there's a gap in awareness of some of the pieces that you're talking about that are significant in some of the spaces. I remember a few years ago, we had a pedestrian safety contest where students had the opportunity to come up with their own social media presentation, and they made their own awareness campaign to their peers, and that helped to increase awareness for them about programs and about opportunities. And I almost think that we need more of that, because we're speaking adult to adult and there's gaps. But I think that some of the information needs to be at their level about what some of their issues are and what some opportunities are. And we're not really involving the students around what things are there and what their concerns are. So I would welcome the opportunity for internships. I don't know how this can happen. I just think this needs to happen. You need to have more of our students involved in creating some of these spaces, creating some of these opportunities, awareness of some of what they see on the levels. They need to see this data that you're talking about, because this is data, but this is also experiential learning, that they're living these numbers. On the west side, we know that the west side is problematic, but they live that they almost get hit by cars. They live that bicycle safety for them, walking safety for them is problematic. So I almost think you need some qualitative data to go with this quantitative data that you have. And I welcome the opportunity for you to go into and get some of that from our students, and then share more real-time opportunities for the grants that you're applying for, because it needs to almost come off the paper. I didn't know that some of these things were in our own buildings that you're applying for grants for. So there needs to, that gap needs to close. And I don't know exactly how that happens, but I know students need to be, parents need to be, community councils need to be, all of those things, those gaps need to close. And I don't know exactly how that happens, but I do know that that's a big piece that's significant. So I'm putting the problem out there, and I'm just telling you, we need to fill that space. The data is here. I want us to work with getting the people who are impacted by this in the space as well. I feel like it's internships. It's getting the kids immersed in this, helping them give you some realistic information so that the applications that you're applying for come off the paper. So I don't know, are community councils involved in this? Are LSDMCs involved in this work? Every building has an LSDMC. Are they involved in helping you get connected to the community councils that get connected with the data as well? I'm just kind of wondering if we can kind of bring some of this home so that we actually impact change. And I'm not saying that we're not. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, how do we take this off the paper so that our kids can really see some impact? More than what we are not. Not that we're not. I'm not saying we're not. I'm just wondering, how do we help you more on boots on the ground?
Sure. I can't speak to how DOTE approaches it, but I can speak to how the health department does, specifically healthy communities. So I can kind of go back to that engagement slide just to talk through it. So when we've done projects before, I'll use Roll Hill as an example. We worked with Green Umbrella and got connected to the resource coordinator there at Roll Hill School, and then met with the LSDMC and spoke with them about traffic gardens, the benefits of traffic gardens, and what our role would be if they would like a traffic garden. And that was a part of the grant application and process. And then we worked very closely with the students and engaging them to see what kind of elements they would like involved in that traffic garden. They were the ones that decided on the final design out of all of the templates. And so definitely more in the school, but we had to go to the community as well because we found through Rural Hill School specifically, there wasn't a ton of parent engagement, but we could access the parents through the community. And so we worked with Lisa Heidmiller at Rural Hill and went to some of her events at the villages of Rural Hill and engaged parents there to get feedback on the traffic garden as well. For this next round with the Creating Healthy Communities grant with the Westwood traffic garden, same deal. We met with Westwood school admin and the LSDMC to talk about what a traffic garden is, et cetera, et cetera. And so our plans are very similar with the traffic garden to expand that out to the Safe Routes to School engagement and work with the prioritized schools resource coordinator to identify all of those different key stakeholder to be involved in an advisory committee, essentially. I would love to have student interns. We have a couple interns here in the room with us today that are with us for Healthy Communities, and any opportunity to learn from them and have them learn about the process, I definitely welcome it. And thank you for that feedback. That's a huge part of the work that we do. Yep.
It sounds like you guys are already there. I just welcome the opportunity to help expand that. I know Lisa Heidmiller, so you are already connected to the proper spaces for sure. So hopefully we can expand that and then maybe make it even curricular so that our kids are getting some credit. It's already, you've already got the framework. You're already there. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank
I just
you.
want it to be bigger for sure. Thank you.
One of the benefits of the Safe Routes to School Plan 2 on the non-infrastructure side is we could do a formal evaluation of the traffic gardens and see how they're impacting students to see if they are making a big difference in longevity and long-term goals around what DOTE is doing with infrastructure changes. So that's one thing that could be a possible strategy. We don't want to go into the plan like already coming up with strategies, but that could potentially, we could look at that as well.
Great, thank you. Well, I want to be respectful of time because I know it's the middle of the workday, and thank you to our school board members who took time to come down to City Hall. So thank you so much. Thank you to Health Department, DOT. I also want to shout out our Health Director, Dr. Mussman, and Associate Director, Dr. Amina here too. And I see a whole contingent of Health Department folks. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you. We'll go on to the agenda here. We need to approve and file presentations 1, 2, and 3 without objection from my council member colleagues. Great, clerk, we will file those. Thank you. And then we have 2 reports here at the end. I'm going to talk about them quickly. Earlier this year, I submitted a request to administration to look at our parks, recreation areas and playgrounds where there have been shootings or are in neighborhoods with the most gun violence, and ask the administration to first identify those spots that are city owned and operated, and then look at what's needed in terms of cameras and light infrastructure. So the report came back in 2 parts. First, which is item number 4, identifying those priority locations. And then item number 5 here is actually giving us a cost estimate for what it would look like to increase the lights and cameras in that area, along with a nice little map of those areas, 2 of the recommendations. So I'm really excited to have this information back. We want to make sure these spaces are safe for kids and families. In the budget, which we will be finalizing tomorrow, there is $1 million allocated towards these infrastructure improvements. So these reports will be kind of the guiding documents that help us prioritize how to spend and allocate that $1 million. But if you look at the report, which is item number 4, the total cost is over $2 million. So this will obviously have to be a multi-year process, and probably beyond then. That to make sure that these parks, rec centers, playgrounds are safe for kids to come play, and that's where we want them to spend time after school, over the summer, and more. So I will pause briefly for any comments from anyone on those before we file them.
I was just going to ask, yes. Madam Chair, so I know that former council member, but currently Congressman Greg Landsman also gave us $1 million for lighting and cameras. I know it's not enough, but we really appreciate it. I mean, it's very helpful. So this will be in addition to that. So
correct.
We're trying to increase the number, which is great. So thank you.
Yes, and we have additional investments in the budget, and I don't have it in front of me, into our real-time crime center and cameras there as well. So really making those investments across the city. So with that, we will approve and file both 4 and 5 on the agenda as well. Thank you again. Any closing comments from anyone? All right, fantastic. Thank you everyone for joining, and with that, we are adjourned.